everybody. Thanks for joining me tonight. So I wasn't here last Monday because it was a holiday here in the US, and well, you guys were probably all out having a good time. Here in New Jersey, Memorial Day weekend is the unofficial start of summer. I don't know if that applies anywhere else, but it does here. So, so most people are enjoying the beach and being outside and all those things. They're the first time in the unofficial part of summer. So welcome to Fireside Chats with Kimberly. As I tell you now every week, as you can see, I am not fireside because it is too warm here in New Jersey. It was 88 degrees today. It's been in the 90s over the weekend. But don't worry, the conversation is always just as cozy, no matter where I'm sitting. Thank you to Orgain, the sponsor for this week's talks. Prize packs for this month's contest have been graciously donated by Hodo Foods, Crofters Organics, Follow Your Heart, Cinnaholic, Orgain, and Shroomeats, our newest monthly contest sponsor and donor. I invite my viewers to enter the monthly contest at virtualvegfest.com by clicking on the contest tab for details. Entering is super easy. Just by liking and or subscribing to our social media and Virtual Veg Fest YouTube channel, you're entered to win one of 6 prize packs. And of course, thank you to the Plant-Based Network for being a strategic partner with Virtual Veg Fest. So let's see. My plan tonight was to talk about fish, and we'll get there, I promise. But I saw something that annoyed me, and I just want to talk that out first. It was an interview with Joaquin Phoenix, and they asked him, as so many vegans with new children get asked, they asked him if he's going to force his vegan lifestyle on his son. His partner, Rooney, is also vegan. So I guess this interviewer was figuring that the poor child was going to be doubled down on with the vegan lifestyle. But why are we still asking this question? There are countless studies that show that animal products are dangerous to our health. There have been links made to animal product consumption to heart disease, to certain cancers, to things like asthma, acne. So from like really bad things to, more manageable, not life-threatening issues have been linked through scientific studies to be brought on by consuming animals. So why are we concerned with someone who would be feeding their child vegan food and encouraging them from a young age to live a vegan lifestyle? The National Institute of Health has come out, I want to say it had to have been at least 5 years ago. I'll try to find the article. I'll share it on one of my social medias. But they've said that, or the World Health Organization, they've said that a vegan diet is perfectly fine and sustainable and safe for all stages of life. So again, why are we still asking this question? And then my question then is, do we ask the same question of new parents, like new parents who are meat eaters? Are we asking them that question? Are you going to force your meat eating lifestyle on your child? I've never heard anyone ask that question because it's just assumed. And in that way, it's not considered forced, right? You're a meat eater, so are your kids. So why is it any different if Joaquin and Rooney are vegan? Why would their child be raised any differently? I just don't understand why that connection has not been made. So anyway, that annoyed me. And I just wanted to talk it out here and just kind of maybe have you think about that. So anyone who's watching now, do you have any thoughts on this? Like, am I missing something here? I just don't see it. Can we stop asking that question of vegan parents? I just don't understand why that matters when we don't ask meat eating parents, are you going to raise your kids on, are you going to raise your kids on like chicken nuggets and, fast food? I don't know. Anyway, I have a couple of comments here, so let's get to that. Hi, Hairline. Thanks for joining. Honey LeBronx, oh my goodness. Hello. Thank you so much for joining tonight. Yeah, you're right. The fact that they're asking Joaquin is nuts. He was at the Oscars and he took the time at the Oscars to not talk about what an amazing actor he is or how amazing his movie and the people who got him, worked with him on that movie. No, he talked about the dairy industry. So, why they would ask him that question of all of the vegans that are interviewed when they have kids or whatever, it's just nuts. I completely agree with you, honey. Thank you. You know, Richard, I wanted to avoid this part because he did answer it. Did Joaquin answer the question? He did. And he said he's not going to force his lifestyle on his son, and that he's not going to, which I think he said it because I think you have to say that. It's like the expected thing, because if he were to say, yes, I'm going to raise my child vegan, then that sets off a whole other thing that then he has to deal with, right? But what he said was, I'm never going to lie. I'm always going to make sure that my son knows the truth and that he would be able to make his own choices. But let's be real. Like, when you're a kid, like, do you even get to choose what you wear to school until you're, I don't know, 10? Probably not. I don't think I did. So why do your kids get to choose what they eat at home anyway? But I'm not a parent, so I don't want to spend too much time going on about that because I don't have the experience that way. I mean, I was a kid, so I remember what it was like being a kid. And, outside of if my parents took us somewhere, my brother and I, and they were like, here's a menu, choose what you want. Or my mom would give a list of, here are the things that I can make tonight for dinner. Which one of these do you want? Like, I wasn't making the choices of like where my clothes came from, what I was eating for dinner that night. Like, that's what the parents do because you're a kid. You don't know. When you're a teenager, maybe you can start making those choices. And anyway, sorry, getting a little worked up. Hairline, all right, so you're not a parent either. Great, we're in the same boat here. I've noticed comments from parents who are carnivores criticizing vegan parents. Yeah. And of course, when you look at news articles that are published about children who, were who wound up very sick or were found neglected, that they had vegan parents and like the kids were living on, I don't know, celery sticks and juice or something, and it's just like, oh, the vegan diet is what made this baby so unhealthy. But that's not a vegan diet. Like, I can't remember the last time I had celery sticks. Like, come on. um, so there's still a perception, I think, sometimes out in the world, and especially when it comes to like kids and like being healthy. But it just doesn't make any sense because everyone I know has fed their kids like chicken nuggets and macaroni and cheese. It's like, well, that's all they'll eat. But why? Because that's all you give them. Okay. I think I'll step off the soapbox about this for now because I feel like I'm getting a little worked up. And I have met this before, and not being a parent somehow, not somehow, not being a parent kind of makes people take my opinion less seriously because I don't understand what it's like to manage a child who doesn't want to eat anything. So I'll stop there. But it really annoyed me and had to get it out. And I'm really glad to see that I am not alone. Okay, let's see. Yeah, it's hard, right? So, Hairline, here we go. Hairline has another comment. Yeah, I mean, I was a meat eater as a kid too. Um, and, most of us, because that's kind of the way of the world, like that's how most of us are raised, right? I would say those who are raised, vegan from the time their kids are really lucky. But, we have an experience, and I think that it's obviously valid for us to share. And yeah, so yeah, I mean, even if you said no, how many times, like, I don't know, would you have been sent to bed without dinner if you were like, I'm not eating what you make? And yeah, animals died for all of those meals. That's tough. It's hard to think about, right? But I I always like to think that when you know better, you do better. So if you're raised in an environment where meat eating is normalized and you're exposed to the ability to be vegan, you're exposed to what it means to be vegan, then once you know better, you do better. And I think as long as that's the approach that you take, it doesn't change what happened before. But knowing that we have the ability to move forward, I think that's huge. And that's where the power is. And I think that's why those of us who do go vegan after learning about the animal industry and what animals endure to become food, I think that we have a responsibility to do something differently. That's the whole reason why I do this show, right? I want people to be able to ask questions and to talk about the difficulties of learning the things that you learn when you start to look into exactly where your food comes from, and to just feel safe and comfortable to talk about it and to ask questions and to be able to make that decision no matter what the people around you are thinking and whether or not the people that are closest to you support you. No matter what, you always have me. I'm here. You can find me online. You can find me here every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and we'll talk it through. And that's what we've got to do. Yeah. Oh, Diane. Yeah, I know. That's so Diane had to she's not asking this question. Her follow-up is that this is what she gets all the time. And it really is that protein question, right? They're also worried about that. Well, where's the fiber? Like, you ever think about that? Like, how is this food coming out of your kids when they're eating nothing that has fiber in it? Um, and I did an episode not too long ago about protein. So if you want to catch that, definitely check that out, where I talked about that ridiculous question of, well, where do you get your protein? And it's the minute you utter the word vegan, that's the one that's coming out at you. So just be prepared for that. Thank you. I appreciate all of the back and forth tonight. That's been wonderful. So my topic for tonight, if you saw any of the posts about the show tonight, is about fish. And I haven't seen Seaspiracy yet, so this isn't based on anything from Seaspiracy. Just kind of, I was thinking about how people are like, oh, I'm just pescatarian, I just eat fish, or people don't understand why like fishing is wrong or bad or how it hurts the fish. So um, scientists have confirmed there's scientific evidence that shows that fish feel pain. So whether you are hooking them and throwing them back or hooking them and leaving them in your cooler to take home, they are suffering. They feel the pain of being hooked and they feel the pain of being crushed by the fact that they can't breathe once they're out of the water. And very often, because I know that people will say, like, oh, well, I always just throw them back. I just do it for fun. Oh my gosh. Like, could you imagine? Could you imagine doing that to any other sentient being? I don't know why it's okay to do it to fish, but like just pick any animal you've ever encountered. And could you imagine someone saying, like, oh, I just like to hook them in the mouth and then I set them free? Do that to your cat, to your pet rabbit, to I don't know, like you see you're at a farm, you watch someone do that with a cow. Like, how is it? But somehow, like, people have separated from the fact that like fish, it's like they're not it's like they're not sentient. And I guess maybe it comes from the fact that we can't touch them the way we can touch other animals. They can't be pet. We can't hold them and snuggle them. Maybe that's where people find there's a disconnect. It's like, oh, well, if I can't physically connect with this being, then they can't possibly live a life that's, meaningful, which is completely incorrect. And I'll get to that in just a second. Honey has another comment for us. Thank you, Honey. Yeah, right, exactly. They get, hooked, punctured. So it's not just the pain. They've now got like a puncture wound in their mouth, which is that going to heal? I don't know, probably not. Can it get infected? I would think so. And yeah, so now they can't eat. How do they survive? They don't. So this whole like, oh, I throw them back, it's like that's not, I don't know, maybe how is that better than just murdering them and turning them into your dinner? They're still suffering. It makes me sad. So fish have the ability to recognize you. So people who have aquariums, those fish can learn your face. And when you walk in a room, they know that you're their person. And sometimes if a stranger comes in and it makes them uncomfortable, they'll react differently than when they see you come in the room. They can recognize each other. They form bonds. They can play. So maybe they don't play the way we do. They don't have the same appendages we do. But they can engage and live rich, social, fulfilling lives as fish. But somehow people don't see that. I was also, when I was doing some research to talk about this tonight, it said that fish can also recognize themselves. So if they have a mirror, they start to realize, oh, that's me. They're self-aware that way. I love my cats. I've seen them look in a mirror. They don't know they're looking at themselves. If they even notice the cat in the mirror, it doesn't seem like they're having a moment of like, oh, is that me? I look great today. It's like they don't, it's not registering. That doesn't make them any less, their lives any less meaningful. But I point that out because people think that fish are so just like, I don't know, food or something fun to play with. But they're real sentient beings with an interest in living, and like I said, they can live these full, rich social lives. So that's why we shouldn't eat them. I also was surprised to realize about aqua farming. I didn't know how they fed the fish in aqua farming. So aqua farming is when fish are not caught commercially. They're not caught from the ocean. And we'll talk about that in a second. But aqua farming, they are raised in small, sometimes cages within the ocean, but oftentimes inland and not, in these very small enclosures where they are piled on top of each other, just like in factory farming, just like the animals that are held in factory farms. They are given very little space. They are swimming in their own excrement and the excrement of all the other fish. They are loaded with antibiotics and all of the things to try to keep them from getting sick because they're living in an environment that is not the environment they are meant to be living in. I hadn't even thought about how do you feed these fish? I guess I just assumed that like they had some kind of inappropriate diet that they had created for them, right? But what I learned is that very often those fish are fed, they're very often predator fish, so like salmon. Those fish are fed fish that have been caught commercially. So even if you think, oh, I'm eating fish from, that's been farm raised, so it's not impacting the oceans. Oh, it still is. It still is. So they are fishing to feed the fish. It's just like raising the Amazon to plant soybeans to feed the cattle. It doesn't make sense, and it's just hurting our environment. It says it takes 5 pounds of ocean fish to produce 1 pound of salmon. So, kind of like, I wish I knew the numbers, but it's literally like it takes a lot of pounds of grains for 1 pound of like beef, right? It's just it doesn't make sense when you could take all of those grains and you could feed people instead. You don't need the animal in the middle. And so, commercial farming, very often they use trawling to do that. Trawling is when you take huge nets and you put it down into the water and it scrapes along the bottom of the ocean. So, sure, maybe the fish that these fishermen are targeting are in that section of water, but you know what else is there? Everything else that lives in that section of the ocean. Turtles, small sharks, dolphins get stuck, fish that are not what they're looking for. You know what they do with all those? They pull it out. So this giant net comes out of the water. Now everything is suffocating because these animals live in the water and they're being squished by the weight of the other animals in the bag. And yes, coral. Thank you, honey. Coral. Coral also gets scraped up. And then they drop the net onto the boat. They find the fish they were looking for, and then they dump everything back into the ocean. That's called bycatch. Everything else that's been caught is considered useless to them. And it doesn't matter that those animals have been killed or that they will die, that they're suffering and they will die when they hit the water and that, or they're so damaged that they'll immediately be attacked by a predator. So no matter what, we don't eat fish. Don't eat fish. Stop eating fish. um, the experts have been saying for a while that we're looking at fishless oceans real soon. And by real soon, I mean 2048 is the date. So that's only 27 years from now. Like, I did that math so fast. 27 years from now, most of us hopefully will still be here, right? What does that mean for our environment? I tried to do some really good research before this, and oh my gosh, I was on all the different like ocean sites and meteorologists and like looking at all these things. And the ocean helps regulate the temperature of the earth. So if the ocean isn't full of all of the life and the plants and the things that the ocean needs to be healthy, to provide all of the things the ocean provides for us, then where does that leave us? Like, we think it's not important, I guess, that we have fish in the ocean, but it is. It's so important that we're able to leave these animals be. I then was looking at fish as pets. I've never had like an aquarium myself, but I've been to places. I think dentist I went to a long time ago had an aquarium. I've been to aquariums, I've seen them, and I didn't know. I was wondering, all these tropical fish, like, they're gorgeous, right? Of course, it's wonderful to sit there and so calming to look at them and watch them, swim and just kind of be in this space where you can get up like right to the glass and look. But why? Let's think about how much more beautiful those gorgeous fish would be if they were in their natural environment with the ebb and flow of the ocean, just moving and doing what they're supposed to do. Not just floating aimlessly in a neon colored glass box where, I don't know. But anyway, so I looked at how, like, where do these fish come from? Well, first of all, they don't come from here, right? I'm in New Jersey. People who have aquariums in New Jersey, they didn't get those fish from the Jersey Shore. So these fish have come from like practically halfway around the world. What does that mean? First, that means they have to have been caught. And I looked up, and you know how they used to do it? And sometimes they still do, because, by the way, fish, they don't have any welfare protections. It's like any man's game out there. They used to do a thing called cyanide killing, and it still happens now, but it's not the main way to, or not cyanide fishing. It's not the main way that they catch these fish that then are supposed to become pets. So they would put cyanide into the water, and it will stun the fish, makes them really easy to catch. So they could catch a bunch of fish in one shot and get them on their way, sell them, and to be transported halfway around the world. So not only have these fish now been slightly poisoned, they then have to be transported thousands, hundreds of thousands of miles. Many of them don't survive the trip. And those that do, there's no guarantee they're healthy. They have to be checked for all kinds of parasites, bacteria. They have to be treated for that. It's so traumatic for these fish. And going back to Honey's comment about coral, when they do the cyanide fishing, cyanide kills the coral too. So it stuns the fish, it kills the coral. There are some places where they do hand net catching. So they're not using cyanide to stun the fish. They're catching small amounts of fish in hand nets, but it's still traumatic, and it's still not okay. And it's still not necessary. I mean, we've got the internet now, right? We can look at pictures and videos of anything. We have all these documentaries like, Blue Planet and Planet Earth. And I don't know how I feel about all of those too. And maybe that'll be another episode where I talk about that. But, you don't need to have exotic fish in your house. Like, I guess maybe some people will be impressed if you can tell, oh, I spent $30,000 on this aquarium and the fish within it. But, like, come on. Why don't you donate that $30,000 to help saving the coral? Just a thought. All right. Let me see. Did I have anything else? Oh, and by the way, I found some websites that were pro like exotic fish, and they mentioned like the cyanide stunning and that kind of stuff. So I just want to be clear that that was not like a, let's find the most extreme thing I can point out, and there it is. So that's that. All right. So I think, does anybody have any questions? I see, oh, Hairline, so you asked about aquariums. So I actually think I will do a full episode on animals in captivity. And so I'll definitely, if you want to, you can follow the Virtual Veg Fest. You can follow me. You can find me at Did You Bring the Hummus, both on Instagram and on Facebook. And if you follow me, you follow Virtual Veg Fest, you'll get an update. We post the topic of my show every week. So maybe, I can do one about, I can do one about animals in captivity next week. So why don't we do that? So next week, come on back, Hairline, and we'll talk about animals in captivity, aquariums and zoos and things like that. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. We can spend a couple more minutes talking. And so like I said, you can follow me. Did You Bring the Hummus on Instagram and Facebook. I also have a podcast by the same name on Apple and all the other popular podcast areas. If you have any suggestions for topics for future shows, definitely let me know. You can also submit a message right through the Virtual Veg Fest page for the Fireside Chat with Kimberly. Just send a message there if you have any topics that you're interested in hearing me talk about. And of course, You can always ask any questions, even if they're not related to the night's topic. I am here to answer all of your vegan lifestyle questions. So please bring them on. That's why I'm here. So I will see you here next Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I look forward to it. And I thank you so much for the engagement, for the comments, for the conversation. I am just honored, so lucky, and thankful to be able to do this work. And thank you so much for joining me. And I love you all. Good night.